Family tree mistakes. We all make them. I don't care what anybody says. If they tell you they didn't make any mistakes, they're lying. Because we do. We all make mistakes as we begin building our family trees. So you want to start genealogy right. You want to do things well. You don't want to look back with regret. Well, I ran around Roots Tech and I asked different people if they could turn back time, what would they do differently? Are there things that they regret doing or not doing? I talked to YouTube personalities that are involved in the genealogy field. I talked to professional researchers. I talked to just people that I grabbed at Roots Tech that some had a lot of experience and some didn't have so much, but they all had an answer of something that they would do differently. Check it out. This is Jose's first Roots Tech, and he's been a genealogist for a while. So tell me, if you were to start all over again, would you do anything differently? Have you learned some lessons?
Oh, yes. One of the main things that I would do differently is have more conversation with my grandpa, with my grandmas, have a better relationship so I can know more about them.
Yeah.
And not wait until today to get that back and say, you know, why I didn't ask those questions before? Why didn't took those pictures with them, you know, when they were younger, when I met them younger, you know, and I would have loved to do that from the beginning.
Oh, that is such a common thing.
Oh gosh, if I could turn back time, my thing that I would do is probably talk to more of my family members before it was too late. They are the ones who had the stories. So I can find the information, but I want the stories. I want to know what exactly my great-grandmother smelled like and what kind of cookies she liked to bake and all of those little details that just really make a person who they were. And I would ask those questions.
Well, I don't want to go back.
That's a good one.
For me, so my grandpa, he passed away, I think 2 years ago, and my kids, whenever I have kids, they won't really have that knowledge of him other than through pictures or people telling about his story. And so one of the main projects that I'm working on right now is preserving all of my, like my mom and my grandma. I want to preserve their story. So like conducting oral interviews and then like saving that onto like a YouTube channel or something so that my kids can know the knowledge of their grandparents that maybe have passed on.
I think I would have not been afraid to make mistakes. Sometimes I hesitated to try something new or even to delve into a certain project because I was afraid I was going to make a mistake and mess things up. But things can always be fixed later, and as you gather more information, you'll make a more complete record.
I love that. That's such a good one.
I was very lucky because I got to meet all four of my grandparents.
Ooh.
And I regret that I never spent time with them and find out more about their parents and their life, what it used to be.
If I could go back in time, I wish I would have asked more questions of my relatives, the ones that I can't ask anymore. And I would have asked them more stories, the things that you're not going to find a lot in the records. That's what I would have done.
If I could go back in time and restart as a beginning genealogist, I would have asked questions earlier. I know that that's a really common regret. The reality is, when I was young enough to have people in my life who had the memories, who were very coherent, who were excited to talk about it, I wasn't interested, or at least I wasn't interested enough to sit down and write it all down. You know, we sort of stood around in the kitchen and talked about the stories, but we didn't. It was one of those things where, because I was young, I thought there'd always be time. And I thought that it would always be there and I'd always remember. And it's only now looking back that I realized that that was very precious. And I wish that I had, of course, known then what I know now.
Well, I wouldn't have waited 50 some years to start genealogy. I think I relied too much on my mom, who did a lot of it. And I just wasn't interested until now. So
that's a great suggestion.
Yeah,
thank you for adding that.
Earlier and younger, especially when you have access to your grandparents and their stories.
The one thing I would do easier is I would involve my family more.
One of them is I wish that I wouldn't have been so scared about the mistakes that I made. And I thought, oh my goodness, I can't do this. Look at all the mistakes. But it's okay to keep learning, and it's all about learning to pick up the pieces.
When I was a baby genealogist and I first got into Ancestry, I imported from other people's trees. I shouldn't have done that. So there's still lines in my tree that I haven't gone back and fixed because of time. You know, I'm focused on other branches, but there are a couple of branches that actually date back to like 1100 that I haven't proven. And so what I had done at the time was I imported it because I didn't want to lose it. I don't think, knowing the methods and the skills that I have now, I'd find that information again, no problem. So that I wouldn't have imported from other people's trees.
I feel like accepting and emerging people without proper information, stuff like that could be possible.
Don't accept all leads. No.
That's a good one.
When I first started, it was like, oh, this looks right, and click, and next thing you know, you're like, your tree's not right, and it's all messed up.
Yeah.
I gathered a lot of information and got a lot of letters from cousins and so forth. But then in 2012, I joined Ancestry. And it was so much easier to gather information than it was reading those, those files a long time ago. So I was so excited that I downloaded so much information from all of these trees of relatives. And at the same time, I downloaded a lot of mistakes that I didn't realize.
Yeah.
So now I'm going back and trying to correct a lot of those mistakes.
So you're saying that you accepted other trees on Ancestry, their information, and it was wrong.
Yes.
That happens a lot, and a lot of people don't know that. That's a really good. That's a really, really good tip.
I would create a research log and be more organized.
I didn't have any organization at all when I first started. I just went willy-nilly and just went here and here. And I had my four different, my father, mother, and then their parents, and didn't have any structure and just went crazy. And that frustrates me now. Okay, so I would have done that. I would have had some kind of organization. I would have learned how to organize my research, because I have papers everywhere, here and there, and I don't even know, like, half the time what's even on there now. I see scribblings in there. So that's number one, I think. And we have family reunions with my side, the Basua side of the family. I would have completely, from day one, started with just asking them questions, which I didn't do for years, and now I'm starting to do, and it's great because they're right there, right? And some have passed away, and I'm frustrated that I didn't interview them like this before they passed away. So those are probably my two biggest things that I would do.
All right, so my first question is, if you were to turn back time, what were some of the mistakes you wished you could take back when you first started?
So
we all have them, right?
I was an odd child. I started as a teenager.
Me too.
and back in the 80s, there wasn't the sources we have now, and we didn't have the connections we have now, or the big databases we could compare against. So my biggest mistakes at the beginning was researching stuff that had already all been done, and then not writing down anything about how I figured out what I figured out. So I had no idea how accurate, and I had to kind of start over again later on.
I know. Do you know what? I did that too. When I first started, I just did a video on sources because I told people, yes, you can have like a professional research calendar, but I don't care. I just want you to put down something. It can be Grandma Georgette told me so, because you get to be, a few years later, and I have some stuff in my tree. I do not know where it came from. I can't find it anymore, like precise birth dates or something like that. I don't know where it's from, and I can't find it.
Yeah.
So totally agree with that. That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Great suggestion.
So a thing that we often do as new genealogists is we're looking at, how can I grow my tree? How can I add people to my tree? I'm not sure it was a mistake, and I did this in my early 20s. More than what I regret is that I didn't realize how quickly I needed to go from gathering trees to now thinking about how to get the records to support what's in the tree. So making that leap as soon as you're able to, from gathering tree information to getting into records and supporting evidence for what's in the tree.
Yes,
differently?
I would pay better attention to detail. So whenever I find a document, at the beginning I would just hurry and get what I wanted and what I was looking for. And I wish I had paid better attention to everything on the document, not just the name, the last name, and then maybe the date or something. But I would take more time to write out all that's on there, and then also write exactly the way it is on the document, not adding things that I already know or assume.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, that would, because I've gone back and had
me
to like look at that document again and look for things that I could have just written down at the time, and I would have saved time. So that's just a time saver, I guess.
I wish that I had trained myself better, because I did have some training. I've been a missionary at the library for some years. But when I very first started, I got some training, but not enough. I just kind of jumped right in, and I tell people all the time, don't jump right in because you'll just drown.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me. So then I had to come back out of the water and just re-evaluate what I was doing.
I would focus more on youth and try to figure out how to introduce it, make it more enjoyable, more interesting, so that they can engage, because youth are the future of the effort.
That's a great suggestion. You don't look that old, but if you were to start it over again, were there some of the mistakes you made in the beginning that you'd like to correct? That you would maybe do different?
I think the biggest mistake I still make sometimes is I just jump from like person to person, even if I'm in a specific family.
So the thing that I would have done better from the beginning is to cite my sources and to make sure that I know where each piece of information came from. Because today I go back to my family tree and I find some weird stuff over there, and I'm trying to figure out where I got that information, and I don't have a source. So I don't even trust my own information. Now, for all of you out there, I will recommend you, besides doing that from the very beginning, just make sure that you interview all your relatives and you ask them questions all the time and every time. Even the same questions, because their answers may change. They may suddenly remember something that they didn't said before, or they can tell you new things for you. So often ask their questions to everybody and take a lot of pictures of the people, of the documents, of everything you do. Document your research. You will say thank you in the future.
I really want to thank everybody who participated, especially Connie Knox of Genealogy TV, Krista Cowan of Ancestry, and Amy Johnson-Crow, who also are on the thumbnail of this video. Thank you all so much for giving me your thoughts and helping other people become better genealogists.